It looks like Marvel's rebooting again. I'm going to break down Marvel's fresh start and tell you exactly what you should be looking for when it comes out in May. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is going to be a weekly one-shot comic book news that's about Marvel's fresh start, so make sure you subscribe to get more of these kind of videos every single week. To start things off, I want to talk about the announcement of Marvel's fresh start. So Marvel's fresh start is essentially a take-on or a relaunch, a reboot of the Marvel Universe, not necessarily in the traditional sense that you would expect from someplace like DC, where they go have a crisis and then a new continuity. Crisis, new continuity. In this case, what it is, it's more of a relaunch of the original titles that they've been using for a period of time. So this is probably news to a lot of people simply because Marvel Legacy just recently launched and brought back a lot of the classic numbering system. So you've got Spider-Man creeping up on issue number 800, you just had number 700 for Marvel's Mighty Thor, and then there's a bunch of different other ones that are going to be hitting their milestone issues relatively recently. And with the announcement of Marvel's fresh start, there's going to be the announcement of a bunch of brand new number ones. However, there are some caveats to this. Like when we talk about Avengers No Surrender is going to be finishing up on issue number 690 and then going to be kicking off with number 1. However, we do have a quote from Tom Brevoort, who is part of Marvel's publishing arm, and he says that we're going to be continuing with the legacy numbering. So that means we're going to be getting dual numbering. You're going to get a brand new number 1 to tell you that this is the beginning of a brand new story arc, a brand new creative team, something along those lines. However, this is the 691st issue of Avengers. So there's a little bit of confusion, but it's going to help kind of maintain the continuity of what we currently have inside the Marvel Universe. The big thing about this, though, is that it's the shuffle in creative teams. So if you've been paying attention to Twitter, you've seen that Chris Samnee's Marvel contract is up, which means that he's no longer going to be doing Captain America with Mark Waid, and the same thing with G.H. Walter, who did the fantastic run in the Vision and was currently working with Donny Cates on Doctor Strange. The big thing is that with these departures, that makes way for new teams to take over various things, but it also leaves Marvel with a couple holes in their superstar lineup of artists and storytellers. So the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about is the shift in creative teams, as well as the rebooting or relaunching or the brand new number ones that are going to be what you need to focus on when it comes to Marvel's fresh start and how it kind of continues and plays into the Marvel Legacy continuity. Another thing that's relatively important to note, and that we saw in May's 2018 solicitations for Marvel, is that Jonathan Hickman's returning to Marvel to finish up his S.H.I.E.L.D. series. So issue number 5 and number 6, which has been delayed since 2010-2011, and then there's a new one-shot that's going to be coming up with that. So this could mark the return of Jonathan Hickman to something of a bit more prominence inside Marvel, or it just could be the finalization of a contract that he's had. Either way, Hickman is relatively prone to delays. We've been looking for one of his brand new books for like the last year and a half out of Image, and Black Monday Murders has continued to be on delay. We just got recently issue number 8, so I wouldn't hold my breath for Hickman. Now getting into the meat and potatoes of Marvel's fresh start, what we need to talk about is the books that are going to be impacted the most. So with this giant splash page that they released, which shows all these different characters with great art by Jim Chung, we actually see a bunch of different things. First, we see the brand new Thor, which is going to have the golden arm, the golden Mjolnir, which was teased in Mighty Thor number 700, as well as a number of things that were going to be taking place from Marvel Legacy. But let's start off with the key one, and we see the change up on the Avengers lineup. So while No Surrender has had Al Ewing, it's had Mark Waid, it's had Jim Zub doing the writing as well as various artists, we're going to get a brand new Avengers number 1, Avengers 691 number 1 from Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness. We're going to be taking over a brand new team of Avengers. So this brand new team includes Captain America, it includes Iron Man as Tony Stark, it gets the brand new Thor, the Odinson with his brand new Mjolnir as the leaders of this team, but it also has a few other characters that are going to be relatively important. We get Captain Marvel, we get She-Hulk, we get Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Robbie Reyes' Ghost Rider. So these are all characters that played a relatively important part in Avengers 1 million BC, so we're going to see the continuation of the storyline of the final host that was teased inside Marvel Legacy number 1, as well as some linkbacks to Odin and his original 1 million BC Avengers. So that's going to be something that you're going to want to pick up if you want to follow along with that storyline. Also along the same lines from Marvel Legacy number 1, we get Black Panther number 1, which is still written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. So if you take a look at the cover that they've already released for issue number 1, you can see that it's a direct link to his first issue that he released when we debuted Black Panther 2 years ago. And at this point in time, it's going to be focusing on the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. So when we ended Secret Wars and we saw that rocket ship take off into space, that was the colonization of the planet Bast, which is going to lead into this Black Panther story arc. So it's going to be a direct shift from what you've seen recently. So you've got the heavy political stuff that started off Black Panther, the resurgence of Claw, and the kind of take on that, and then now getting into the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. So that's probably one of the most interesting stories that I could think of coming out of Fresh Start. Then the next new number one I want to talk about is Venom number one, which is from Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman. So Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman, Stegman did a fantastic job when it started, Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, which was a really big book for me, and the kind of throwback into that Mary Jane Peter Parker legacy, which he started with Jerry Conway, and I really dig his art. And Donny Cates is probably one of the hottest writers over at Marvel because he's been writing Thanos, he's been writing Doctor Strange, and now he's going to be taking on this Venom book. But the big key for this is that it's going to be continuing on after Venom Inc. It's going to continue with Eddie Brock. So a lot of people that were looking for that version of Venom to come back, they're getting their wish, and they have for quite some time. But it's going to be taking it in a relatively new direction, focused in New York City, and being the lethal protector that he's known to be. So it's easily a book you should keep your eye on if you're a Venom fan, because it's going to be going in a brand new direction. And given Donny Cates' tweets about how he's loved this character since he was a kid, I can't wait to see what he's going to be bringing to this book. Of course, you can't talk about Marvel Legacy Returns without talking about Wolverine, so there is the 4-part series which is going to be dealing with Wolverine and his return, as well as a bunch of people hunting for Wolverine based on the rumors that he's actually back. Even though we've seen him in Infinity Countdown Prime, this is going to be telling the backstory, and you've got a superstar group of people that are going to be taking over these 4 different books, and those all come out in May as well. So if we're continuing the Marvel Legacy storylines, we've already got Infinity Countdown and dealing with the Infinity Stones, and now we've got the hunt for Wolverine going on with, this Claws and Mystery and Madripoor and all these kind of different 4-part series, all of them going to be released inside May. Then out of the recent announcements, we have Thor number 1, which is going to continue with Jason Aaron. So while he gets his brand new golden metal arm and his brand new Mjolnir, he does continue the War of the Realms, and the big focus for this book seems to be the hunt for artifacts of Asgardian descent that are currently stored or hidden on Earth for some reason. They're lost to the histories, and he has to gather those things so that way he can take on the War of the Realms. So this is a story that's been years in the making, so you can't think of with the death of Mighty Thor in issue number 706 that Thor number 1 wouldn't continue on with the same War of the Realms storyline. It's just kind of a hint regarding the actual true intent of Marvel's Fresh Start. It's not necessarily a reboot or relaunch, it's just a way to kind of introduce people to new characters and new stories, which I think is more like TV shows. So basically this is season number 3 of Jason Aaron's version of Thor. And I think that's kind of the mentality that they're going to be taking going on in the future. Also recently announced was the Immortal Hulk number 1, which is written by Al Ewing, who's going to be writing a prelude or a prologue inside the No Surrender storyline, so that way Bruce Banner can be reintroduced into continuity as the Hulk. So he's taking a lot of inspiration from the 1970s TV show with Lou Ferrigno, and that's going to be kind of about the independence of Bruce Banner. There's only one man that walks this world as the Hulk, and that is going to be Bruce Banner, and he's going to be taking on that task and carrying that weight on his own, and he's going to be kind of separated from the Marvel Universe for a little bit until he kind of finds his footing and finds his ground after he's returned from the dead. So if you guys have been wanting that Bruce Banner Hulk back ever since Civil War II and Brian Michael Bendis' arrow shot directly to his head, this is going to be the book for you. It's going to be relatively interesting. I dig the concept, and what Jason Aaron said in one of his tweets is that Al Ewing's concept for the Immortal Hulk was one of the most interesting things to come out of the Marvel Creator Summit. The other thing that we can see out of that tweet is that we're talking about Iron Man number 1, so we're not sure if it's Invincible Iron Man or something along those lines, but Dan Slott's run on Iron Man is about to take over, because we've got, in May 2018, the last issue of Brian Michael Bendis' run with Invincible Iron Man number 600, possibly 601, and then we're most likely going to transition into Iron Man number 1/601, 602 with that legacy numbering. So this is Dan Slott and his creative team taking over the book to kind of create this very different, more evidently fun version of Iron Man, so it should be interesting to see what he has up his sleeve. Of course, talking about Dan Slott, we can't forget Amazing Spider-Man. So if we're talking about likely new number 1s and new number 1 relaunches, Amazing Spider-Man after issue number 800, 801, when Dan Slott leaves and reportedly the team of Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley come in to take over, they're probably going to relaunch that book, and that's going to be pretty impressive because it's going to be the July-June timeframe where they're going to have that brand new creative team take over. Of course, this runs parallel to the launch of Superman number 1 in Action Comics, written by Brian Michael Bendis, so it's going to be interesting to see who carries the most weight. Brian Michael Bendis on Superman, or a brand new creative team on Amazing Spider-Man, which a lot of fans have been yearning for quite some time. The big thing that I'm kind of taking away from this is that also inside the May 2018 solicits, we got 2-in-1 number 6, or Marvel 2-in-1 number 6, which is focused on The Thing and Johnny Storm's Human Torch. So we've got Doctor Doom on the cover, we've got another version of Doctor Doom on the cover, as well as these two characters, and what C.B. Cebulski has said about Marvel 2-in-1 is that at its core it is a Fantastic Four book, and with the tease of Valeria Richards and Franklin Richards inside Marvel Legacy number 1, it feels like we're going to find out the fate of the Four at the end of Marvel 2-in-1 number 6, and that's going to be a big implication. We know that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes as far as the cinematic cinematic universe, as well as a recent slate of announcements for movies, but if you're looking for the return of the Fantastic Four, Marvel 2-in-1 number 6 might be your key to unlocking that mystery. Of course, we get the announcement of Multiple Man number 1, written by Matthew Rosenberg, and telling the story of the return or the undeath of Jamie Madrox, but the big thing is that we're probably going to get a lot more announcements over the next few weeks leading up into the June and July 2018 solicitations, where we see where, Marvel's roadmap really leads us. But this is my breakdown of Marvel's Fresh Start. The question is Fresh Start something that they really needed, and is it a reboot or a relaunch like everybody's saying? It is the return of a lot of legacy characters, however, a lot of these legacy characters were already making their way back. Odinson never really left Thor, Spider-Man is still going to be Spider-Man, and Tony Stark was only in a coma because Brian Michael Bendis wanted him to be in there so he could introduce Riri Williams. And a lot of the characters that were introduced, like Nadia Pym's Wasp, a lot of these other characters, they're going to be making their way into other books, so Riri Williams isn't going away, she's just going to Champions. So is it really a relaunch? Is it really a reboot? Or is it just a refresh so that way you guys understand that there are brand new stories coming out from Marvel? I want to know what you guys think, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.